Good morning everyone and welcome to the Tutorial Tuesday. Yes, this is the day where chaos happens, accidents happen, and I usually have huge mistakes. So we're using a lot of stuff today and it's an AlinaCraft tutorial, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to be using. There's a huge amount of it and it's going to be confusing. So from this die set that I was sent, I haven't cut it apart yet. It is an envelope and a card. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to be using the card section from this. I'm going to make up the whole thing for the tutorial next Tuesday, and that will of course include the envelope. It's going to be a Halloween make, so I'm going to use the boo, and I'm also going to use this one, which, as I said yesterday, could be used for any season, but today I'm going to try and turn them into pumpkins. And this is going to be a horizontal card, and I think I'm going to be able to fit two in and then a boo sentiment in the center. That's what I'm aiming for. And because this has got a lovely scallop edge and the card section of this die has a scallop edge, I thought it would complement each other nicely. So those are what I'm using. Now, because this isn't really going to look like a pumpkin unless I give it some leaves, I've taken this ivy leaf die out of my stash and I'm going to crop it down. I don't actually have any pumpkin leaves, but I think when I cut that down and dangle bits off there, then I think it's going to look okay. So that's from my stash. Now, to go along with all that, we're going to be using a couple of the charms, which are out of this huge bag of assortment that comes with sort of skeleton hands and all sorts. But because I don't want them silver, I want them white, I'm going to be painting with my paint that I got a few weeks ago from Tuesday morning, and that's the Heidi Swap, and it's just white paint. And to pop it on, I'm going to be using a Dollar Tree brush. I think these come in a pack of 3 or 4 for $1. They're nylon bristles. They're not for doing brilliant painting, but just for dabbing stuff in, you know, as you want it. They're a great buy. And when they get all frayed like that, you just take a pair of scissors and trim them. So it's going to be paint onto those charms. I'm hoping this is all going to work out. Because I'm making these as shakers, my filling is going to be the purple beads there from AlinaCraft, and also the black stars that I got from Dollar Tree. These are really difficult to see, but they come in all different sizes in a bag. I hope that you can see that if I catch the light. You've got tiny ones all the way up to big ones. Now, they usually bring these out at Dollar Tree. I think probably, oh, let me think back, maybe in July. So when you see them, grab them, because I don't think they've got them now. So they're called confetti. They're in Dollar Tree. Maybe they have them still, maybe not. But when you see them, just grab yourself a couple of bags and stick them in a jar. They'll last you for years. But that's the other thing that's going into the shaker. So it's going to be a blend of purple and black inside of these. And then I'm also going to be using this tree bark stamp that I was sent. And to go along with that, I'm going to be using Stays On Jet Black to stamp the stamp. And I'm going to be blending a whole sheet of cardstock using these colours, and then finishing off my edges with the black soot. This is just regular distress ink, not the oxide. You can use oxide if you want to. Now, the reason that I'm using these colours is because I think they're Halloweeny. Let's see if we can get a close-up. My camera's going to play up today. Ah, there we go. I always do like a sample bit on the front. I've had these for years. I mean, quite literally years. I don't know what the date is on there. It's probably 2003 or something. But I have every single re-inker for distress ink. I do love distress ink. And so they last me for years because I just keep re-inking them. Now, as I said, I'm going to be distressing a whole sheet of cardstock. And the reason for that is I'm going to cut the die for the card out of that. So I'm going to be distressing the background. That's going to be the design for the card, and it's also going to be the design for the front of the pumpkins that I'm going to make using these shakers. Right, so I'm going to get a plain sheet of cardstock now, and we're going to make the paper that we're going to be using. I'll be back in a second. Okay, so I've got my sheet of white cardstock down here, and the first colour that I'm going to use is my mowed lawn. So I hope my camera's not going all wobbly as I sort of try to load this up with some ink. And if you've never done this before, it's quite simple. You're just going to create your own background paper, so you haven't got to go out and buy any. And it doesn't matter about being tidy if you've got non-blended bits or dry bits. We're just going to go over the entire thing. So I'm putting green down, and I do tend to blend in 3 shades, and for some weird reason, I don't know why, I'll kind of go corner to corner and then bring things in and blend them. Like, there's a bit of green down there. It looks a bit scratchy. That's because my ink pad was a bit dry. But now I'm going to go in with my orange, and I have got a new sponge for that, so I'm lucky. And this colour that I'm using now is Rusty Hinge. So I'm just loading that up there with Rusty Hinge, getting as much on as possible. And now I'm going to go off in this corner. And they probably do need re-inking. I mean, you don't use all of your colours every day kind of thing, so you can end up with some pads sitting on the shelves for a few months before anything gets done with them. Now you can see I'm not aiming for perfection. This is going to be a really distressed background, and that is basically all that I'm doing. Look at that. You can see there is zero perfection in any of that. I'm going to go up to my purple for a minute, and then I'm just going to finish inking the whole thing, because I don't want you to have to sit and watch that. And then I'll be back to show you how I complete the blending. So this one is now Dusty Concord that I'm using, and it's a purple. So I'm going into that bit there. This pad, I think, is a little bit more juicy than the others, so we're going here, and it's all sort of like not perfect. You can see it's got all different sort of scratches and things in it, which is what you want. So I really am sort of like dragging it around here. I'm going to go a little bit of purple here, and then I'm going to go back to green and back to orange, and I'll come back as soon as I've done that. Okay, I've done that, and you can see it is not perfect. It's very rough, very rugged, very distressed. And now I'm going to go in with that stamp from Alina. I'm just simply going to hold it in my hand. I'm not using a stamping platform. I don't want any perfection. And I'm going to use my black StazOn. I'm just going to snap the lid off that. And I'm just going to push my stamp into there, basically wherever I want it. And then I'm just going to be randomly going over this all over the place, just to get a great distressed effect. And you'll start to see that the parts that you thought were, you know, kind of like missing begin to become part of the overall design. Just use different bits of your stamp so that it's not looking all the same, but the overall thing is those colours. That's really what you're aiming for, is those lovely Halloween colours, different bright things. And I'm just sort of like going to ghost in grey, sort of like as if you're cleaning off your stamp on there. So, you know, just do it a few times. Right, I'm just going to finish dibbing and dabbing my stamp and I'll be back. Okay, so I've done that and now I'm going to finish it off with some more orange. So I'm just going to go over it, and what it does is it will start to calm that black into the backgrounds. Now you can use any kind of stamps to do this, whether you're using, you know, sort of prettier colours and flower stamps or whatever it is you want to use. But I think those look like, you know, sort of like werewolf scratches on my paper. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking werewolves. Werewolf's claws. I told you I was eccentric. Right. Okay. So I've mellowed out the bit that I thought was too pale. And there's another bit there that I think is too pale for me. Now, I have to leave that to dry. Of course, I'm in Florida. It's very humid. So I'm going to be back in about 10 minutes where I'm going to be able to die cut my card panel and also die cut the fronts for my shakers. And because I've got huge blocks of colour, I can take a card panel that's going to have all of the colours in it, and then I can sort of like dot my what are going to be my pumpkins around here, and I'm going to cut my boo in black. So that's what I'm going to do. 10 minutes for this to dry and I'll be right back. Okay, so that's dry, and you can see if I hold it up close just how distressed that looks. I promise you, when it's cut out, no one will realise that it was actually you that inked it. It will actually look like a piece of store-bought scrapbook paper. That's the nice thing about doing your own backgrounds. It's not perfect, just, you know, slap it on and do whatever you want to do. So now that that's dry, I'm going to go and cut the pieces that we're going to use for the project. And when I come back, we're going to do the cobwebs. Yes, told you we have accidents. Cobwebs. We're not going to throw things around, and we're going to be using the lovely nylon bristle Dollar Tree paintbrush there, and we're going to use that because I don't want silver, I want white. I'll see you in a minute. So I've been away and I've cut my bits out, and I've done the die that I said I was using. This is the card section of the card and envelope set from Alina. So I've cropped those apart, and I've also cut these out, and this is what I've done. So we've got a black background. It's going to go that way. Just move that white paint for a second. And this is the scallop layering piece. This is going to go on foamy pads. So that's that piece. And then I've cut what I'm hoping are going to look like pumpkins. And these are going to be shakers on there. So there's one. And I haven't cut the boo out yet, which I hope will fit in the center. But there's the other one. And of course, when you're using like for like, you need to go around the edge with some distressing, whatever colour you choose. And then, as I said, for my stash, I've cut these ivy leaves to use as my pumpkin leaves because I haven't got any pumpkin leaves. And so I'm going to probably snip them in bits and sort of trail them off there. But next, what we're going to do is we're going to colour in those lovely little silver cobweb charms. Oh, and also I've got all this left, look. So I can do something else with that. And these are the leftover pieces. You get a circle from those other ones, and you get these bits that pop out. So, you know, you've got some interesting bits that are left, but I'm just going to move those to one side. And, oh, I forgot to say, I cut these bits in black as well. These are the bits that go on the top of your shaker. And obviously I'm going to cut some acetate, but we're going to do cobwebs because that's me, you see. I'm digressing, and I know I need to clean this mat off because I can see all of the ink residue on there, and I honestly get my hand sanitizer, don't want it to contaminate the paint. So I got this craft mat, this glass mat rather, a few weeks ago, and I have to say I absolutely love it. Look at all that was sitting on that mat. I don't know if it's heat resistant, so I haven't bothered to look that up yet. And maybe I should, because I'll probably put my heat gun on it and it might crack. I don't know. If anybody knows, tell me below before I destroy it. So I've got that nice and clean so that I know that what I'm going to be doing is going to stay white. So there are my little cobwebs. Here's my paint. I'm just going to give it a quick shake. And this is what's so nice about this mat, is you can just put your blob of paint down there. Right, I'm going in with my Dollar Tree nylon brush and I'm just dabbing it up and down, which probably means I put too much paint down. And then I'm just going to go over the top of this and I'm going to turn it white, because that's going to show up really nice against those distressed colours on the card's background. In fact, to be honest, I think the amount of paint that I just squeezed out there would probably paint the whole bag of charms. But anyway, the fronts of those are now white and they show up a lot better, and I think they're just going to look a lot nicer. I'm just going to quickly whiz around the sides, stipple again and move it out of the way. I don't care if there's a little bit of silver showing through, it's just that I want the majority of it to be white. And move that there to dry. Right, and now I'm left with a large gloop of paint that I need to clean up, which seems very wasteful. I'm not actually somebody who wastes craft stuff. I'm kind of, you know, I'll store it in things and I do actually use it. I mean, everything I buy I do use eventually. And it's one of the interesting things about crafting, isn't it? I mean, I can remember somebody saying to me many years ago, "Oh, you make cards, that's lovely, it must be really cheap." Well, no, not really. Once you've bought all the bits and bobs and equipment that you need, you know, it adds up to a lot of money. So all I can say is it's a good job that it's a hobby. You know, like fishing or golf or something. That's the way I look at it now. I don't really have to justify my spending of money because it is my hobby. But if anybody ever turns around and says to you, you know, "Oh yeah, you know, making your own cards is cheap," just laugh at them for me. Because I think I paid $400 just for my big shot. So, right, those little white things are going to have to dry. But I'm going to be back in a second to put that card base together. Right, so I'm going to use Dollar Tree foam tape, and I'm hoping there's enough here to go along the back of here. I tend to do it 3 times, and I'll go to the edge. I'm using that stitched line there to put this down, and I'm hoping my scissors are here. Ah, yes. I'm renowned for losing scissors. I did once upon a time treat myself to a pair of the very large Tim Holtz shears. You know, I think they've got a 12-inch blade or something, or maybe not that big. Maybe the scissors were just as long as that. And my husband threw them away. he was, because he likes to use my sewing machine, he was trimming off something and he must have picked up all the remnants that he wanted to put in the bin, and the scissors must have gone out in the bundle of remnants, and I've never seen them since. So I did go to Dollar Tree and buy myself a pair of Betty Crocker shears, and they're all right, but they're not as nice as the Tim Holtz shears. Right, so there's 3 pieces of foam tape there, and that does give a really nice sturdy base once you pop it down. But first of all, I'm going to go right around the edge of this with some black soot. So here we go. Really easy to do this. And I don't know if I've ever told this tale before, but years and years ago when I've been scrapbooking since I was 5 years old, but I started getting into altered art and stuff, and I still love it. Not so much appreciated by many anymore, but I still love altered art. and people used to make these fabulous ATCs, and they always had this unique black outline. And I wondered for ages how on earth you did it, because in those days nobody used to share their secrets of doing anything, and I used to drag my ink pad along the edges and all sorts of things like that, and it just did not look the same. And then somebody said the name Tim Holtz to me, and I went in search of Tim Holtz, and he was just then launching Distress Ink. And I think the only colours that were available were denim, and I think it's called denim jeans, and worn lipstick and black soot. And of course I had to have them. I was in England at the time, and I ordered them, and they came from America, and I got my ink blending tool, and that's when I discovered that that's how you get your nice black edge. And I used it on everything. And I still would use it on everything if I could. But I just think YouTube's fabulous because people can't hide what they're doing anymore. You know, I think it's really important to share with crafters. I really do. Because sometimes, you know, Pinterest and Instagram are fabulous places for looking at glamorous photos, but you want to see how something truly is, because if you're going to create it, that's how it's going to be. So, you know, using huge amounts of contrast and bright lighting, it does make a fabulous photograph, but it's not true, which is why I try to lower my camera. I try to show you my mistakes, and I like to show you close up that that is what it looks like. If I threw a lot of contrast onto that, you would think in a photograph that it was absolutely awesome, and how on earth did you do that? I'm not going to do that. I'm always going to show you how it is. And so this is how it is, and I've just done my black edge there, and so I'm going to be able to pop that down, and it's looking quite spooky already. And I do think that that looks like werewolf claw marks. Right, let me stick that down and I'll be straight back. Right, so that's now stuck down and it's good and solid. I do recommend doing just 3 strips like that if you've got the Dollar Tree foamy pads, because it just, you know, makes a good solid base. Right, so what am I going to do? I think while I've got this in my hands, I'm just going to blob a little bit of black soot down on those leaves. I'm trying to get myself a really spooky looking card here. And I mean, if you wanted to, white gel pen to sort of like do the veins of the leaves, that would be awesome. It would make it really, really stand out. But I'm just darkening up, and I don't want to tear it. I want to be able to cut it where I want it. So I'm doing it judiciously. That's a good word, isn't it? I'm glad I still remember what it means. Right, so I've distressed those up a little bit more. Now, one of the things that I'm going to need to do is I need to go and cut some Dollar Tree foam board, which is what I use instead of regular foam, and some acetate to turn these into shakers. So I'm squeaking on here just to clean that up. Look at that. And I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so lucky me, and I've put my air conditioning on. If I think it's making too much noise, I will turn it off in a minute. But one of the things that I didn't realise was that this shaker needs a back. So using my scraps that I had left, I went and cut 2 backs, and I did them in alternating colours so that the green is over the purple is over the green, orange, etc. And then I also discovered AlinaCraft sent me some black foam. So I've cut the 2 pieces that will go on top of there, and that will give you the race section in which to put your sequins beads. And then between these 2 pieces, this is the top and this is the other base, will go the acetate, which actually will go under there so that it's hidden. And I have got to peel the fronts and backs off that so that that all goes down like so. So that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to glue all of these bits together, and then we'll come back and put the shaky bits in. So I glued the base pieces and the foam down, and I decided while I was doing that for my pumpkin pieces, before I glue these bits and the acetate on top, I want to stamp a little pumpkin. So I've got this little set that I've had for a couple of years from AliExpress. If I can find it, I will link it below. And I just want to take a couple of these cheeky pumpkins and I'm going to stamp one in the center. So I'm thinking I quite like that happy expression, because that will lighten the mood a bit, and I'm going to go for another happy one, I think. So I'm going to go for that one. And I've got my stays on pad here, and I've got a little stamp block. These are from AlinaCraft as well, and they're just perfect when you just want to put one little item on. You know, if it's a tiny little sentiment. I do like tiny, teeny little sentiments, but finding them can be quite hard now, because it's all sort of like handwriting and flourishes and stuff. So I'm going to try and get that in the centre and give it a squeeze. There we are. So we've got a little pumpkin there. That's really cute. I do like that. And then I'll pop the other one on, get him the right way around. And some stays on ink. Just dab that on. Make sure I straighten that up, and I'm going to pop that one close to the top as well, because you've got that black edge that needs to go down, that little scallop edge. So I've got my pumpkin there, and then the scallop edge will go on there along with the acetate, and that just adds, I think, a cute little bit of humour. Yeah, I like that. Back in a second. Okay, so I was going to use these purple beads, but they're too high for the depth of my foam. So I've actually popped my Dollar Tree black stars into there. I'm going to try and drop the camera. I hope that's a bit better. And just a few that I've put in there. And I've also cut my boo out, which is going to go in there, and it does fit really nicely. So I've got a lovely boo. Those are ready for these to go on. I'm just waiting for the acetate to finish drying. And if I can gently just pick one up, you can see that you've got your little acetate window. That's where I stamped the pumpkin there. And these will go on top of there. And then my idea is I'm going to swing some twine between the top two so that my cobwebs can hang down, and I'm going to pop one either side of the boo like a little washing line with a glue dot. So just waiting for these bits to dry, and I'll be right back. So while the acetate's drying, I've glued my boo down, and I've decided I want to go in with my gel pen. If you've got a gel pen and you find it's not flowing, just warm it on your finger to get it going, and that's usually good for you. Now, the glue is still wet on this, so I'm kind of like still tapping it down, and I'm going to put a little bit of white gel pen there to highlight that exclamation at the bottom. And then I also want to follow that line down. So I've got a little bit of white going on there. And then I think I'm just going to put some sort of like little curly Q highlights on my boo, just to make it stand out a little bit. Just a quick flick with the pen there. And of course my sequins are static, and I'm picking them all up on my hands. It's one of the things you have to remember with sequins. They just don't go down always where you expect them to go. There we go. Pop those back in. And I think I'm going to do the bee as well. I'm just going to just put a little sort of like scribbled dash up there in the bee. Bit of a triangle. There. Quite like that. Might whiten these up a little bit more. I always go quiet when I'm colouring. I stick my tongue out. Don't know why. I think it must help. Helps with the process when you've got your tongue hanging out. Right, put those sequins back in. And I'm still waiting for my acetate to dry. We've had lots of rain here. It's really humid. So I'll be back in a second. Right, so my top pieces are now dry and it's time to fasten it all down. So I'm going to go across here with my Dollar Tree glue, and I'm going to be as close to the edge as possible. Because foam is squishy, you don't want all that white stuff oozing out to the edge because it's absorbent and it'll probably show up. So you need to keep your hands away from your sequins because there's a lot of static, as I've just said. And let's get these tops down, and then we can finish it all off. I can put my little cobweb washing line down between them and pop those leaves on to try and create something that looks like a pumpkin. So I'm actually going to stand up for this because you know what I'm like for getting things centered. And I'm going to go down with the first one and I'm going to pop it there. If my scallops are a little bit off, I'm not really bothered because that just adds a little bit more interest, I think. I'm going to press that. This will take, in my weather at the moment, probably about 10 minutes to dry. So I think I've got those on straight. You usually get just a couple of minutes wiggle room with this glue before it starts to bond, and I do love Dollar Tree Jot glue. So there we are. It doesn't not bother me at all if I'm a little bit off because I just think it makes the pattern look pretty. So I've got my tops on there. I'm going to let those dry and we'll be straight back, and then we'll finish with the leaves, the cobwebs, and that's what we're going to be doing. And do you know what? I got my little sewing tin out. This is my little craft sewing tin, and I've got my twine, and then I thought, nah, I'm not going to sew those on and turn it into a washing line because I've cut so much ivy. I'm actually going to use this and trail it between the two, and then I'm just going to glue my cobwebs in like that. That's what I'm going to do. So yeah, I think that looks all right. And I've got my glue dots here, and I'm going to use some Dollar Tree glue. And I think what I'll do is I'll put the cobwebs down first so that I'm hiding the hangers and pop the ivy over the top. Now, I kind of like them where they are, a little bit uneven and sort of like touching the lettering. So I might bring that one down a little bit more. Yeah, I like that. And then I've got some glue dots, if you can see that. Let's get microscopic and zoom out. The sun is actually shining at the moment. There we go. I think you can just about see it. And I'm going to pull one off with my pokey tool, or attempt to. It's not always that easy. So I've got that little blob there. These are incredibly strong. And I'm standing up again and I'm going to poke that underneath its hanging bit. And then it will be, whoops, get it to stick. Pull it off with my fingers actually. And I'm going to pop that one, I think there. And once you push it down, that's it. It's stuck. Now, these glue dots, like other clear glues like this, they've got resin in them, and it does take a little bit of time for them to cure if you're doing something substantial, but they will cure and they'll give a permanent fix for you. So those are down. And now what I want to do is use my trail of ivy. I'm going to use this piece along the top and sort of like hide those hangy bits a bit, and then sort of like connecting up the pumpkins. So I'm going to get my Dollar Tree glue, and I can roughly see where I'm going, I think. And it doesn't bother me that some of that boo is going to be hidden, because there's lots of it, if you know what I mean. It's boo 3 times on there, so hiding a bit of a boo isn't going to be such a big deal. Right, I'm going to go with that. I'm going to let that dry and I'll be right back. Right, so now I need to pop some on here. So I'm actually hanging the, not hanging, hiding the hangy holes there. So I'm going off of this bit, and if I need to use glue anywhere else, then I most certainly will, but I'm going to pop that one there. It's all looking viney and creepy. And I think I'm going to turn that one that way around so that it's kind of like climbing in towards the pumpkin. And then I'm going to put a tiny little dot of glue there, which will hold that one. And I'm going to do the same. Whoops. Let's pop that back. I'm just going to do the same there, and I'm going to move that piece in. So 10 minutes for that to dry, and you'll be able to have a good look at it because it's finished. Okay, so that's now dry, and I really do hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. I'm sorry if it was a bit long, but let's get a close-up. There you've got the lovely little shaker, black stars there from Dollar Tree. You've got that little shaker tag element, and it's sort of like creating the impression of pumpkins. You've got that lovely boo sentiment. You've got those charms, which you don't have to have silver. You can paint them whatever colour you want. I've used the white gel pen there just to add a little bit of brightness to the boo. And you've got that other one and those little pumpkin stamps from AliExpress. Now those stars do move around inside there, but I just think that's really fun. That's great. I think that's a great card for a teenager or an adult, and I think my husband would probably really appreciate that. So we've used a lot of stuff today, but as I said, with this set, which is the card and envelope section, this little bit, we'll come back next Tuesday and we'll do something totally different and create a card again and probably a matching envelope. But I really like that. I think it's cute. I mean, if you've got those little mini fairy lights, you can pop those through there. You can just pierce a hole through the back of your card and you can switch it on and off from behind. But that was today's tutorial. Right, I am up tomorrow with a design team haul from MX Art and some of the most amazing Halloween dies you ever did see. Along with Christmas dies as well. And for the rest of the week, it's going to be MX Arts Halloween. And next week is going to be MX Arts Christmas. So I'm going to get busy making some more stuff, but I'll be up tomorrow with that design team haul. You have an absolutely fabulous day. And if I didn't say it already, as usual, all links below. Bye.